If you taught finance education at schools, you would literally eradicate this. This is what people still get wrong about the gender pay gap. It is not that men are being paid more than women for the same job. That is illegal. Hey, I'm Abby, and I'm back to talk about something finance related whilst I also do my hair. Today's topic is the gender pay gap, something that so many people think they understand, but they don't. So, in terms of the hair stuff, I actually had my hair cut at the weekend and I have a little bit of a middle parting fringe going on purely because when I teach in schools, I actually had the humbling experience of asking my students what is a very obvious millennial thing, and they said it's the side parting. So now I'm desperately trying to look less millennial and have this middle parting going on. And then everyone seems to have these fringes at the moment. And so I'm trying it out, although blow dried it. And like always, my hair blow dries dead straight. And then I have to end up using a lot of heat to create the curl. So that's what I'm going to show you how I do. So blow dried it. When I blow dry my hair, I always use my Dyson. So I bought this a few years ago. And for me, it genuinely is an investment piece because I have quite a lot of hair. It takes a long time to blow dry. But with this, it significantly reduces the amount of time. And also, I don't know why, it just seems to dry easier and quicker versus when I have to use other hair dryers now, I'm always a bit meh. I will go out of my way to leave things out of my suitcase to make sure I can pack that. Hair brush wise as well, I have a paddle brush for the majority of my hair, the main part, and then I have a barrel brush. So I have the Termix Evolution. I'll put this in the link in the description. But basically I use this when I'm blow drying my hair to blow out the fringe if I want it to be just slick, or I'll use it whilst I'm blow drying to just flick down the ends. But today we are going to use heat. We're going to use my GHD curves. These this is just as opposed to my straighteners. I think if I want a more blown out look, I tend to use my straighteners and then pin. With this, I want it to be a bit more slick. So I'm going to use the GHD curve with pins just to keep them in place. Product wise, I use my volumizing blow dry mist. I use a heat protectant straight after my hair was wet. Use volumizing blow dry mist as I'm blow drying my hair. I also have a dry shampoo that I've got the Living Proof Advanced Clean Dry Shampoo that I've started using. I use it so for instance, I'm going to do it now, then I've got a bunch of filming to do, and then I'm going to probably put this in my hair tonight to refresh it, so then tomorrow it still looks really nice. Let's get started. So I'm going to start doing my hair, and I'm also going to explain how all of this works. Before I get started on my hair, I'm going to use my blocks to kind of explain something, because I did this on Instagram, and Instagram lost their mind because I did this. I said that this represents a man, this red block, and this represents a woman, this blue block. And the internet just couldn't fathom that I was using the wrong colours. They're not the wrong colours, they're just colours. So I'm going to stick with it, all right? So this represents a man, this represents a woman. Great. A company with a bad gender pay gap will see that they will have more women in their junior roles. At the beginning, you'll find that statistically, you'll have more women. So this represents the beginning of their career. You'll have more women in those roles versus men. And then as you get through your career, it starts to change all the way up to the C-suite, where you find that the gender shifts and you end up with less women in those C-suite presidential roles. That is the gender pay gap, when on average, men are earning more than women. I've worked in a variety of different industries. I actually worked in glossy magazines for a while. I loved working there, but I was so aware of the gender pay gap. There were statistically more women in the junior roles than when I looked at the C-suite. It was a lot of men. And that really frustrated me. It's why I'm so passionate to teach finance in schools, because personally, I think if you taught finance education at schools, you would literally eradicate this. You would, because you'd have women that would be more comfortable getting to those presidential C-suite roles purely because they have the education behind them to get there. A lot of people say that there's things like culture and, what else is going on, and we'll get into that whilst I'm doing my hair. There's a reason for that gender pay gap. But in its entirety, that is how the gender pay gap works. We are seeing more women in junior roles, less women in senior roles, and that is what we need to change. Right, back to my hair. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin as I go just for ease. I'm going to probably leave this front section till the end because I'm just going to curve that away from my face. I think that's the theory I'm going to go with. We might change, but we'll see. So I'm just going to pin this out of the way. And I'm going to explain how I do a pin curl as well, because I think that's something that I always think everyone can do, because I've been doing it for such a long time. It's sort of like second nature, but it's really fiddly. But once you've got it, you've got it. And like I said in like some of my last videos, if you haven't watched the last ones, I use like these grips. You can get them anywhere. I'll leave links to them below. The fact that there's different colors is completely irrelevant. I just have so many of them that I've evolved different colors, and my gosh, so much hair. Anyway, I'm going to use the same method as last time. I'm just, instead of using straighteners, I'm going to use this. So I'm going to sort of like go down the center of my head to like basically create the volume. And then we're going to do the ones on the sides. We're going to pin them, and then we're going to take them out and probably curl off with the curler at the end is what I think I'm going to do. So, right, let's get started. So I will say in advance, I can get very passionate about this gender pay gap subject, because I get very frustrated that in 25, where we are right now, that we still even have a gender pay gap. You know, companies have to, so there's basically rules now where large companies, if you have over a certain number of employees, you have to report your gender pay gap. When I worked at Hearst, my friend Josie used to have to help write out the gender pay gap report. And it's like, it's not a small thing. It's a really big thing. You have to look through all of the income of the different genders throughout the business and things like that. It's quite a feat. And these businesses have to file these reports and basically declare whether they're good or bad, and then also what they're doing to fix it. And as you can imagine, female-based companies, like Hearst does have statistically more female-based magazines. You will find that there's going to be some disparities because the female magazines may attract more females to work for them. But I do still feel very passionately that why do we then see a C-suite or a presidential suite full of men working on a female-based business? That's the bit that frustrates me. I, without fail, will always talk about the gender pay gap with the kids I teach in schools, because I always ask the same thing. I always say to them, like, what do you think the gender pay gap means? And without fail, you'll get a group of people that say, oh, it's because men are being paid more than women. And then I go through the whole thing that I've just done with you, where I go, nope, not quite. Men and women being paid differently is illegal. And they say, oh, interesting. And then we get into what the gender pay gap is. And then we go even one step further and we talk about the gender pension gap, because the gender pension gap follows on. You have so many gaps and inequalities now that we see from the gender pay gap. The gender pension gap happens because, obviously, on average, women are earning less, so therefore contributing less to their pensions. We also see culturally that when women take unpaid care leave, or better known as maternity sometimes, when they end up leaving the workforce to go and work and go and care for their children, they stop contributing to their pension. And obviously men just carry on, because often paternity leave is only 2 weeks, which I also have a problem with, by the way. Paternity leave being only 2 weeks is ridiculous. You know, I know some companies now are offering the kind of like shared support where you can split it, but it's not going far enough, if we're really honest. So yeah, it then leads to a gender pension gap where women are ending up with like half, or sometimes maybe, I think the stat now is 30%, but it was at one point 50% less in their pension pots than their male counterparts. Frustrating, because pensions are investments. And obviously, if you're putting in more at the beginning or putting in less at the beginning, you're going to get less at the end. And actually, we very rarely have defined benefit pensions anymore. So those final salary pensions where you're guaranteed an amount, most of them are defined contributions, which means that you put in, or you get out what you put in. And if you're putting in less, you're going to be taking out less. Frustrating. We get then the gender investment gap where women obviously earning less are then putting a percentage of their salary maybe into investments or savings, and it's not the same as men. It's risk appetite. There are so many reasons. You know, women are overlooked for promotions and leadership roles, if we're honest. Like, that is something that might be a bit controversial, but can be happening in companies all over. You know, I am very UK centric with my content. I talk about taxes in the UK, I talk about finance in the UK, but this is a global problem. Like, the gender pay gap is a real global issue. We're seeing more and more leadership in more and more women in leadership roles now, you know, even down to the Australian prime ministers and like the UK prime minister, we did have a woman and things like that, but we're not seeing a complete shift the other way just yet. Something I would say when curling is I try and do try not to do like all of one side and then the other side, because often you can then end up with like uneven curls. So I go down the middle and then I'll do like one on the left, one on the right, one on the left, one on the right, to try and like match the sections I'm taking, because I think it's something that, again, when curling your hair, that can look a bit funny is if you are taking different sections in different places, then your hair will sit slightly differently, and we don't want that. We want it to like come out even. That's genuinely what the blow dry look looks like. And like I said, I'm curling and then pinning this, but at the end I'm gonna like take, because when I'm curling at the moment, I'm going in at a right angle and kind of just rolling up. But when I take this all out, I'm gonna like go down. I'll explain to you when I actually do it, to basically have a bit more of a like looser curl. But yeah, that's my idea. The back can be trickier when it comes to curling, but just persevere. Right, here's where I'm going to speed this up and just try and get through as much of this as possible. Okay, so I've done the majority of my head. I know we didn't curl this bit, I just pinned it. I'm just going to show you again how I curl and pin, because it's the bit that I think is the trickiest. When it comes to the wand versus the straightener, I tend to, at a right angle, just go right to the bottom of the hair, take it, wrap it round, and then just start rolling it up. And then just holding it in place for the time being. Maybe, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 seconds. And then just start to come out and then let it go. That's the curl. So at this point, if you're really finding it frustrating to pin, you could just take the pin into the curl itself and just start kind of pushing up and then just pinning it up as much as you can. That's the like bare minimum. What we want to do though is, like I've said before, take it up and away from the direction that your hair is going to flatten down. So you roll it down, your thumb, and then take your pin and pin it. Yeah. Oh, is that gone in? Yeah. I'm going to do it one more time here. Again, always when it's at the front of your face, I always curl away from my face. I just personally think it looks better. It just like opens up the face more rather than like curling in. So yeah, always curl away from your face. So when we're doing this section, I'm probably going to take this at like a slight angle, get to the bottom. If you've got layers as well, I get to the bottom, and then as I'm rolling up, I'll like curl, whoop, she says, curl the rest of the hair around it with my hand, and then it picks it up. Obviously there's some little stray bits, but it's fine, we can pick those up. But it's facing away, and then again, other direction to the way it's going to land, wrap it round your thumb, and then pull it down. Do you know what's just coming to my mind is obviously, like, I do my hair whilst I'm talking about finance subjects because it's a way to get people in and get people watching. But I appreciate I am talking about the gender pay gap, and in no way do I want this to come across like, you know, flippant or like, oh, you know, she's a woman, so therefore she's doing her hair. Like, the gender pay gap is a really serious subject. I'm just doing this because I know that it's something that that people want to see. And I think it's important that if you are someone that like is watching YouTube and you're interested in, you know, how I do my hair, that there's also this point where, you know, you're gonna, oh, I'm going the wrong way, aren't I? Given I literally just said to you, face away from my hair. You know, I want you to feel like you're learning two things at once, and we can have conversations about the gender pay gap whilst we do our hair, because for so long, men are having conversations in bathrooms about investing, or so I hear. I don't know, I've never been in them. And I want there to be this world where women are talking about their investment portfolios or inequality or politics whilst they do their hair. So, right, at this point, I'm going to let this cool down for a minute. The whole idea of putting in the pins for me is just for it to cool down and cool down in the curl, and it makes it last longer. Obviously turn these off, and then I'll come back in literally a second and take it out and show you how I like style it, and also finish off my rant about the gender pay gap. So I've got two final things I want to talk about. So one, which is why it matters, and two, what's changing. Because why does it matter? Well, because these gaps become lifetime gaps. You know, I've already spoken about the gender pension gap, the investment gap, that means that women are ending up with less in their pension pots. But also throughout people's lifetime, we're just seeing so much inequality. And I get frustrated because I think, well, the next generation deserve better. And it's why I started teaching in schools, because I was like, I don't want to get to 40, 50 years old and a 20-year-old come to me and be like, why didn't you even attempt to do anything? And when I go into schools and I teach finance, it's not just girls' schools I go into all schools. I notice that still now, what we see is that young girls are like shifting back into this old narrative where like the boys come to the front so quickly and the girls come to the back, goes to the back, and girls still feel like finance isn't open to them. They've got every reason to feel like this. You know, it wasn't till the 70s that women could even have credit cards on their own or like loans on their own, get houses and mortgages. The finance system was mainly built by men, and so therefore their thinking will have been about themselves. You know, fine, normal. But it's why we end up with like gender inequality that comes up in all the weirdest places, because men think that they should design the world for them, fine. But therefore it doesn't always work for women. And that comes out with finance. You know, the way that we talk about investing is so masculine. The way we talk about money is so masculine. It just seems to be more comfortable to talk about in male environments, whereas in female environments, you know, I may be wrong and I would love to be proved wrong. But I can't imagine there's many people curling their hair and talking about finance right now, because it's just not that thing. It's not the done thing. But what I really want from you, by the way, I have been rambling away, but I would love you to tell me in the comments if you have been aware of the gender pay gap in your office, if you feel like you want to disagree with me and you think that it's not a thing. I've got a lot of comments on my Instagram video, so you won't shock me. If you completely think that I'm making this up, fine, tell me about it in the comments. Talk to me. What do you feel like? Because I feel like, yes, we may see change, and I'm going to talk about change at the end, but it's not happening fast enough, and I'm getting frustrated more and more every day that I'm still seeing gender disparity across the board when it comes to finance. You know, even in my own finance space, we're seeing more men in the education space. They're amazing, love them, but there's still more of them than there are women, and getting women up to the same level is just difficult. When I was letting my hair dry, I went and got coffee, and I don't really want to let that go cold, so I'm just going to drink that at the same time. But time to take this out, and then I'll show you how I like finish it off. So at this point, I'm going to take all the pins out. Let's fast forward through this. Right, the reason I use these like metal clips as opposed to Kirby grips, personally for me, it's just I feel like they hold better, and also they don't leave like a ridge. You can even get, I think I have one somewhere. Anyway, these like clips where it's like a flat, oh I do. This is what I was talking about. So you can get these clips where they've got like the flat plastic, either tops or bottoms, and it means that they don't create like a ridge on your hair. It's just an option. It's not always a way. Sometimes I use them to like pin down my fringe. I may actually keep that there because I'm going to do that. But yeah, whatever you've got is fine. Like some people just use a mix of all different types of clips that works for them. Like I said, this look, for me, I want to be more like softer. Sometimes when I do a bouncy blow dry, I just genuinely want like Dolly Parton volume, because I know my hair will like slowly shrink over time. Or not shrink, but just calm down. So I'm starting from a calmer look. I'm gonna just, again, personal choice. You can use your fingers, which I do a lot, to just tease out the curls because we don't want them all stuck together. You can also take the brush. I personally would take it just to the ends of the hair, because if you go from here and brush down, you're just going to brush out all the hard work that you've done. But at the ends of the hair, just to sort of like separate the ends a little bit. Gosh, it is also very normal to lose a lot of hair. I lose so much hair. I'm emptying this hairbrusher with hair probably like once a day, every other day. It is normal to lose a lot of hair. You know, hair shedding is normal. It is what it is. And I used to get so stressed out by it. And I've gone through so many cycles of hair. I've had, like at school, I always had like, hair was always a thing. It's always been a thing for me. But at school, I cut it really short. I dyed it really dark. I then was growing it out. I've had layers and not layers and fringes and not, and I always have overthought shedding a lot. I've always been like, oh my gosh, it's falling out in clumps. But you know, nowadays, as long as you give it a good like scalp massage when you're washing it, you should try and like get a lot of it out whilst you're washing it, so that when you're styling it, you're not putting too much pressure and then ripping out hair that wasn't meant to shed, basically. Now, this is probably a touch much, but it's okay. We like it. What I'm going to do now, though, is I'm going to use this and I'm going to go back over the fringe, because what I want, at the moment, I've got my fringe coming, like, forward. I'm going to take this section, she says, I'm going to be really careful, and I'm going to take the straighteners and curl away from my face and down as I'm curling out. Yeah. And that's what I want to achieve. More away. You could see this is not my full-time job. More away. And then I'm going to do the other side. This is easier to do with this GHD curve, with the like hair curler, because it's not, with the straighteners, it's just a bit harder. You can sometimes also just use the heat of it to push down the flyaways. I have the most frustrating, I get a lot of baby hair around my front of my face, and when my hair's down, it's fine, you don't really notice it. But when I put my hair back, I genuinely every time have these like 2 little bits that like stick up like horns. It's really annoying. And I spend my life like hairspraying them down. Right, I brushed it out. Obviously the last thing I do is I set it. So I tend to hairspray it. Again, I try to do that once it's cold. Like when your hair's still hot, I don't know the theory behind this. I also, caveat, 1, everything I talk about here is finance education and not advice. And secondly, everything I do when it comes to my hair is just my learned experience. My mum is a hairdresser. I have lots of wonderful friends that are hairdressers, but I am not a hairdresser. This is just what I have learned. And personally, when I hairspray it, when it's hot, I feel like it, I don't know the science, but I feel like it drops it. Whereas if I put a little bit on now, it usually holds the curl a little bit longer. And then what I tend to do later on in the day is I will spray it on a hairbrush or on my hand and then like smooth out the tops of my hair so it doesn't go so like frizzy. But I have naturally quite straight hair, so I won't put a lot on my head to start because I know it will like weigh it down. If you're someone with particularly curly hair or frizzy hair, you might find like spraying it to start will just help calm it down, or using a serum. I know that I always get told off for not using more serums. This was the final thing I wanted to talk to you about. Here is what's changing. So with the gender pay gap, we've talked about obviously women and men and the fact that there is disparity from the beginning of their careers to the end. But what we also talked about is the fact that we now have to, or as businesses, they have to file gender pay gap reports every year. And we are seeing more and more businesses having to take initiatives to include women in the conversation, which I think is so important. And if your company is doing something particularly cool, please talk to me about it below, because I really want to talk more about this and I want to be doing more in this space to see how I can help. Like, I'm teaching in schools because I love it, and I think that education will help these 18-year-olds understand that they need to prepare for their pensions. They need to prepare for maybe taking unpaid care leave. There's lots of things they can be preparing for, not just when it happens. You know, even explaining to mums that like when they're taking time off to look after their kids, if they're registered for child benefit, for instance, they get the state maternity or the state pension credit. So it's not technically credits, but they get national insurance contributions towards their state pension amount that they need, because you need 35 full years of national insurance contributions to get the full state pension. There's so many little things that we can be teaching people so that they get the most they can possibly get out of this. But we just need to see change. We're seeing more women talking about this, more women being open about their finances, which is really important, but I think we could definitely be seeing more. Okay, so I would like to point out, this was not a video hating on men. Men are doing incredible work in this space as well. This was just a video to talk about the gender pay gap whilst I do my hair. Like, that is it. It wasn't deeper than that. It's just a conversation that we need to be having more openly. And I want you to be chatting to me about this as well. So here's the outro stuff. Please don't forget to subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed it. If you didn't enjoy it, tell me why in the comments. That's absolutely fine. It's a video I made because I'm so passionate about this, and I didn't want it to be really long or overwhelmed with like stats and figures. I just wanted it to be like a chat that you'd have with your friend. So if there's another subject you also want me to cover, tell me that below. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for watching to the end, and bye.